Hi everyone, welcome to episode 3 of Liquid Loans Behind the Scenes. In this episode, we're going to have a look at what is the primary function of the system, and that is taking out a loan. If you haven't watched the previous 2 videos, I suggest you go and watch them because this does actually build on top of that information that we've already discussed. So let's jump straight into it. Like I said, we're going to keep these pretty short and sweet and straight to the point. Okay, what is a loan? Okay, so let's just have a look. If you're a user who has some Pulse in their wallet and you've got an option, at some point in time you probably want to take some profits from your Pulse. Well, you can either go and sell that on market, or you can use the lending protocol, which is Liquid Loans, and I guess extract some value that's been built up into your Pulse without having to sell it. Now what we'll do is we'll look at a very simple scenario first of all, and as we progress later on in this series we might talk about a few more advanced things and other things you need to consider, but let's just keep this to the bare minimum you need to do to be able to take out a loan. Okay, and we can improve on that from there. Okay, now if you want to take out a loan, you need to send your Pulse over to the vault. Okay, so you're going to actually create a vault. You can create 1 vault per address. Okay, so we create our vault. So you've deposited some collateral, some Pulse. And on the other side, so there's always 2 sides to a vault. There's the collateral side and then there's the debt side. So on the debt side, you've created a debt and you've withdrawn some USDL. So you've actually minted, you've created that stable coin. The process of depositing the collateral allows you to mint the stable coin. So we're the central bank in this scenario here. The protocol and you are actually minting the stable coin into existence. How does that look? Okay, so we need to deposit a minimum of 110% collateral ratio. So what that means is we need to deposit essentially 10% extra in value as a minimum. So if we sent $2,200 worth of Pulse into the system, we could extract $2,000 worth of USDL because we've got a 10% extra there. So we've got 110% collateral based on the actual loan that we've taken. Now, do we recommend you do that 110%? No, because that's the minimum. Okay, but that's how capital efficient the system allows you to be. But there's reasons why you don't want to get it to that level. In some instances, when you're more advanced and you know how the system works, you may want to leave it at that level. But it's important that when you're first starting out, you don't go down to that minimum level. In actual fact, what we recommend doing is probably more in about the 200 to 250 range. So over collateralized by that amount, and that gives you a really safe position. So if the price of Pulse fluctuates, your vault doesn't become risky. Okay, so anything, if you set a vault with 110% collateral ratio, that's on the verge of being a risky vault. You get a small percentage drop in Pulse and then it becomes a risky vault, which is not where you want to be. Okay, so let's have a look. So what do we want to cover here? So you've essentially deposited your Pulse and you've taken a loan, and I've used a very specific figure here. The minimum loan that you can take out on the system is $2,000. Okay, and that includes what we call a liquidation fee. So it's a refundable amount of 200 USDL that gets built into this minimum loan amount. Now, if you pay back the loan, you get that 200 back, and there's also fees to take a loan. So minimum fee you'll pay 0.05%. So when we quickly discussed the loan token before, we said it earns fees. So when this loan's taken out, those fees sent back into the loan staking pool. That's where those fees go. So as an owner of the loan token, you actually get a yield based on how much the system's being used and how many loans are being taken out. So that's really important. Okay, so we said the minimum you can take out is $2,000, which means the minimum amount of collateral value you'd have to deposit initially would be $2,200 to get you to that 110 ratio. Now we recommend you go up a little bit more, so you're probably talking where you need to put in as a minimum $4,000 worth of collateral to withdraw that $2,000 amount. In essence, you can withstand essentially almost a 50% drop in the price by doing that. And we'll go into all of those details in a lot more, but just understand those rough numbers for now. So basically, the more collateral you put in, the more buffer you're giving yourself from dip protection, essentially. Okay, so let's have a look at two other things. I'm going to erase some of this now. Let's have a look at payback versus redemption. I'll clear up some of this, and we'll get back to our original that we done. So we've deposited $2,200 worth of Pulse, and we have taken a loan of 2,000 USDL, so we've minted that into existence. Now this USDL, you can, as the little arrow up here suggests, you can go spend that, you can go buy Hex with it. You might need it for a short period and your intention is to pay it back, which is fine. Let's say you've taken out that $2,000, you've done whatever you need to do with it, and then you've decided you want to pay it back. Okay, so if you send that USDL back into the vault, you can actually clear the debt position, which then frees up all the collateral you've deposited to be removed. So as soon as you've paid back that debt, free to withdraw the collateral. It's no longer collateralizing any type of loan. Okay, so that's one scenario. That's a simple payback. There's no fees to pay it back, and in essence, you don't necessarily ever need to pay a loan back. Okay, now obviously, if the price of Pulse drops and you want to reset your collateral ratios to safe levels, that's fine. But imagine you've just taken a loan out, you've paid a 0.5% fee to take the loan out, but there's no interest cost, there's no ongoing interest cost. So it's a timeless loan. You never have to worry about paying back the interest on it. So you could just let the Pulse value accrue over time, and you end up with a much better collateral ratio in there, and you've never had to pay back that loan because you're not getting charged an interest rate. Now the day may come where you go, you know what, I really want to pay that loan down and withdraw all the collateral. That's fine. Let's just say the Pulse has gone up in value, so it's sitting in here and it's gone up a reasonable amount over time, and you could go, I don't want to actually I've used this USDL somewhere else, I've spent it, brought Hex, done whatever I wanted to do with it, so I no longer have it. I don't want to pay back the loan. Well then, how can we clear the debt? Well, you could just use this portion of Pulse, pay back the debt, clear it out, and then this excess can then be withdrawn out. So by adjusting the levels in your vault, you can essentially pay back the loan. So it's not like you're sending money back in, but you're using the collateral in your vault to pay back the loan. So that's another way you can deal with this. Now let's have a look. I said there was one other important thing, which is a redemption. And this is important. This is why you don't want to have your vaults on the risky side of the equation. Now let's just say as a user of the system, you've deposited your Pulse, your $2,200 worth of Pulse, you've taken out $2,000 worth of USDL, but we've got a user sitting over here. He's a pretty happy user, holds Pulse and Hex, but he also holds some USDL. And we said USDL can always be redeemed for the underlying collateral. Okay, it's always, the system is solvent and it can always be redeemed, but it's got to come from somewhere. That Pulse has to come from somewhere. So let's say this chap over here has $2,000 worth of USDL. He sends it into the protocol. The protocol looks across at the most riskiest vaults. So these vaults that are in danger of becoming insolvent, so they haven't got enough collateral to back up the loan they've taken out, are deemed risky. And the system always wants to protect the overall health of the system. So it'll look at these risky vaults and it'll go, okay, this vault here is right on the threshold. So what we're going to do is we're going to send in this USDL. It's going to actually come into here, pay the debt out on that loan, and then take the pulse and send it out to this user here. So he's actually, he's actually redeemed his USDL for some pulse, and the surplus, so this little extra bit here, can actually be claimed by the person that set up that vault in the first instance, so that anything above and beyond the actual loan amount can be claimed back by the originator. And I know what you're thinking. You're going, what? So I can lose my pulse? And go, well, yeah, first you let your vault get to a risky stage, but also understand you've gotten that 10% extra back here, okay, but you already drew out the 2,000. So you're in, your net position is equal, like you're not worse off. The system's just used your vault and your debt to redeem it. Now what that means is you have your pulse is gone, but from a value perspective, nothing's changed. If you really wanted to, you could then go back and take that money and the extra 200 you got back here that was excess, and go back on market and buy the pulse back if that was a concern for you. Now obviously, don't let your vaults get down to this 110% minimum level. As we mentioned before, you want them sitting up around the 200, 250 range. That's good for the overall health of the system, and it protects your individual vault from becoming one of these risky vaults. So you'll understand that the system encourages people to act in the right way to protect the value and the solvency of the system, and more importantly, to maintain the $1 peg of the USDL. And we'll delve into a little bit more about the way the peg's maintained in later videos. For now, I don't really want to get too hung up on that because it starts to get a little bit complicated if you don't have the basics. So let's work on the basics, and then we'll build up that knowledge so you understand the importance of things like redemptions, because redemptions are very important to the system's health. All right. Oh, we've gone to 13 minutes. I was trying to keep these to 10 minutes. That's okay. I think it was worth spending a little bit more time on this initially. It's really important that you understand that what is one of the core features of the system, which is how to take a loan, and some of the minimum levels you need to be aware of, and what actually makes a risky vault as opposed to a safe one. I hope that was interesting. I hope that explained a lot, and you're now starting to see the beauty in the system. We're going to keep going on this, and you'll see how all the feedback loops are really positive for the health of the system as we move through. So stick with me. I'll catch you all in the next episode. Until then, bye for now.